Hi, happy Monday. Welcome, everyone. I am Christine. I am the founder and CEO of the Alignment Tribe, and I am so incredibly thrilled to be with you here today. And not just because it's Mindset Monday, which is one of my favorite hours of the week, but because I'm just thrilled to be here with you in general, here in this lifetime, on this planet, on this journey, growing together. And today I am celebrating 16 years of sobriety, which is hard for me sometimes to imagine and fathom, especially when I think back to what it was like in the beginning and how hard it was for me to even put together a day or 2 days in a row. So I don't have a big mindset training for you this week. What I have for you is my story. And I want to share with you my journey of sobriety and how that's brought me here to this moment. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm a little nervous, not because I haven't shared this story a gazillion times. I don't think I've shared this whole story here with all of you. So I'm used to sharing this story inside the rooms of other people doing 12-step work. So it's always very interesting to me when I get to share this with people outside of that. But you are my tribe, I trust, and I know that hopefully some part of my journey will help you in your journey, or maybe you know someone who's been on this path or is on this path right now. So, okay, without further ado, I'm going to share with you what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. So I grew up in a fairly normal upbringing. My parents, who were just visiting me this weekend, are great parents. They've been married for 50 years. I had a really normal childhood. Went to good schools. We lived kind of out in the country. It was just me and my twin sister for the most part. Our parents were great, gave us a great education. So there really wasn't like anything in particular that drove me to start drinking at 16, other than I wanted to feel like I fit in. I always felt like I was a little bit like outside of the cool kids club. I really wanted to feel a little more comfortable in my skin. I wanted to be able to not compare myself to others. And the first time I went to a party at 16 that, people were serving alcohol, I remember, I think it was like a crappy beer. And I tried it and I was like, this tastes terrible, but it kind of feels good. And I was sort of off to the races right from the start. I drank fairly quickly and fairly heavily right from the beginning. When I was in high school, we would go to parties on the weekends. Karen and I would always drive together, and every time I was supposed to be the designated driver, she would end up having to drive us home. I really liked the way that it felt when I didn't have to feel the way I was feeling. So for me, that meant drinking until I was either blacking out or just like didn't care. Like I just, I finally felt like I fit in. I finally felt like I could talk to guys. I finally felt like I was a part of. And I knew on some level that I had to keep up appearances. I'm really pretty good at putting on an image. And I developed that skill really early in life. And I did that in particular when it came to these high school years. So my junior and senior year of high school, I was still a straight A honor student. I was the president of every club I was in, practically. I was in drama. I was in chorus. I was in, all of these organizations. I was running cross country and track. I did all the things on the outside that you were supposed to do to be a good kid and to keep my parents proud of me and happy of me. But on the weekends, I was, finding opportunities to drink. I was starting to smoke pot. I was bringing that into my friend circle. And, those were my first moments of not only feeling like I fit in and I belonged, but also my first moments of really creating a lot of chaos in my life. So there were times when I didn't know how I got home, or I would wake up from a blackout in the middle of a party, or I would be sick the whole time I was at a party, and friends would be upset with me. It wasn't pretty, but I didn't see anything wrong with it. I mean, we were high schoolers. A lot of kids kind of drank that way, so I didn't really see a problem with it. But looking back, I can see early on, other people thought that it wasn't normal. And I remember friends in high school going to the school guidance counselor and saying to her that they thought I might have a problem. And I remember having to go to the guidance counselor's office and talk about it. And I really downplayed how much I drank, and it still was probably more than I should have admitted to. Anyway, got through high school, graduated top of my class, and I was ready for college. I went to school at Ohio State. And at that time, I'm going to date myself, this was 1993, they didn't really care about underage drinking that much. It didn't seem like you could get into any bar that you wanted to at 18. You didn't have to be 21. And if you're an 18-year-old girl going into a bar, you can get drinks bought for you. So that was what my girlfriends and I did. I remember my drinking really kind of getting out of control over the 2 years that I was at Ohio State. And this was also a time when I started to experiment with a lot of drugs. They were just kind of everywhere, and at least they were in the circles I was running in. They weren't everywhere. And I remember there were times when I would try something, and I would say, okay, well, I've tried that, but then I'm not going to try this. And I would like draw this line in the sand of like, this one's okay, but that's not okay. And looking back over the years, that line always was moved. Like I would try something and it was like, well, I guess that wasn't that bad. And then I would move the line. Well, I guess I could try the next thing. And so for 2 years when I was in school at Ohio State, my grades really started to suffer. I remember going to class sometimes because that was the quietest place to sleep. I was really not taking advantage of the opportunities I was given as a student there. And after 2 years, I was ready to get out. I had been suffering from depression at this point, diagnosed by a doctor. And he suggested it was because of the cloudy weather, which is probably partly true, but also alcohol is a depressant, and, consuming a lot of alcohol can lead to depression. But I thought what I needed was to move. I needed a fresh start. I wanted to get out of Ohio. I'd always wanted to live out west. And so I took the opportunity. And end of my sophomore year, I packed up my car and I drove out west, and I eventually, after spending the summer out with family in the West Coast, I ended up moving to Boulder, Colorado. And when I moved to Boulder, they were much more strict about being able to drink underage. I was only 20 when I moved there. So I got a little more serious about life. I kind of cleaned up a little bit. I worked at a health food store, went for lots of hikes. I started to really connect with nature. I loved being in the mountains. It was amazing. And I also started to smoke a lot of pot, and I started hanging out with a lot of people who did. Eventually, my drinking, once I was able once I turned 21, I was able to go out and drink again. And I can just see that, like, that was such a focal point of my life. Like, all of my friends drank like I did. All of my friends did drugs like I did. All of my friends, did the same things I did. But at least at this point in my life, I was really serious about school. I was paying for school myself. I was working my way through, working at a health food store, and eventually as a nanny. And I was really, really strict about not drinking or drugging or even being hungover when I was being a nanny. Like, I knew that was like, I had to be on top of things then. So I went to school for, thank you for those comments. I went to school at CU Boulder, and I actually graduated summa cum laude, magna cum laude, summa. I graduated with honors with a degree in women's studies, but just before I had completed all of the credits that I needed for my graduation from the university, I moved to Florida with a guy I had been dating in Colorado. And this was someone that I drank with, someone I drugged with, someone I partied with. Not a great relationship, but it was familiar, and it felt like we had moved in together. So it felt like if he was going to move, I needed to move. And so we moved to Florida. And the first thing that we did is that we went to the local liquor store. We moved to this tiny, tiny little like retirement community called Venice. It was small, and everybody there was like in their 80s. And we went to the local liquor store, which also was like a cheese shop, and we introduced ourselves, and we said, we're here. If that's not alcoholic behavior, I don't know what is, because I don't know about you, but I don't know many people who move to a new town, and the first place that they go to introduce themselves as like, we're here, is the liquor store. But that's what they did, and they knew us by name. It was a place we shopped all the time. The parties were always at our house. We had this great house on the beach with a hot tub, and people always came to our house. People brought the drinks, they brought the drugs, and we really found, again, another circle of friends who lived life the way that we did. It was just a constant party. It was at this time that I opened up my first business. I started a coffee house and juice bar at the age of 24. That was quite an adventure. It was something I had always wanted to do. I was able to get the funding to do it. And looking back, considering how young I was and how immature I was and how hungover I was most of the time, it's a wonder it did as well as it did for 4 years. But I can also see like how much better it could have been. I wasn't the leader that I wanted to be for my team. I was often hungover. I would sometimes drink on the job. I would sometimes be high on the job. I would take petty cash out of the register to go, buy wine and drugs. And I thought, it's fine. It's my business. I get to do that, right? But that's not really how you manage a business well. My relationship with the person I had moved there with was rocky at best. We had a lot of challenges in our relationship that were mostly fueled by alcohol. We, in fact, went to a therapist because our relationship was deteriorating to the point of verbal abuse, emotional abuse, and I was concerned it was going to become physical abuse. I'd been seeing, I just need to take a few deep breaths here. I'd been seeing my own therapist for a while because I was so depressed all the time. I was living in a sunny place, so the weather wasn't affecting it. I was really struggling with feeling like I was capable in my job. I really felt like I didn't know what I was doing. I was frequently very emotional. I was depressed a lot. I was suffering from terrible migraines, and my relationship sucked. So I'd been seeing my own therapist for a while. She suggested that we see a marriage counselor. We went to the marriage counseling, and the first thing that the marriage counselor said was, you need to have your conversations when you're not drinking. And so you both need to cut back on what you're drinking. And I thought, I don't know how that's possible. That's just what we do. Like, everybody comes to our place to drink. This is what we do. I'd been experimenting with not drinking through my own therapist. She and I had tried some experiments. She would have me only drink one drink every 24 hours, or she would have me see how long I could go without drinking. And there were times when I was able to put together some time, and I would start to feel a little more clear-headed. I would sleep better. I'd have a little more energy. I started exploring yoga. I would take my dog for walks on the beach. But then I would say, well, hey, look at me. See, I can control it. I must not have a problem. And I would go right back to drinking what I was drinking. So when my relationship was getting to the point where we really I needed something to happen, something to change, we went to this marriage counselor who said, you can't discuss your relationship if you've been drinking. it was nearly impossible for us because there wasn't a time we weren't drinking. And I knew that if I were to stay in this relationship, that the escalating verbal and emotional violence was probably going to get physical. And I knew I needed to get out of there for not just my physical safety, but for my own mental and emotional well-being. And this was the first time in my life since I was a little kid going to church that I started to pray. And my only prayer was, please give me the strength and courage to leave. And I prayed that prayer every day for 3 months. Please give me the strength and courage to leave. I didn't know who I was praying to or what was up there. I just knew that I needed some strength and courage. And so after 3 months of praying for the strength and courage, one day I finally mustered it. I had been told by this partner that if I left, I would have nothing, that I couldn't take care of myself. He essentially owned that coffee house, and so I had to sell it. He owned the house that we lived in, so I had to move. He owned everything. So getting that strength and courage was a lot for me at that time, but I got it. Somehow I got it. And I said, I need to leave. And I left with basically a few things that I'd been able to stealthily store away in a storage unit and a couple of suitcases. And at 28 years old, I started my life over. Because I had sold my business, I now needed to get a job. So I got a job as a cocktail waitress and server at a high-end restaurant and nightclub in Sarasota. And got an apartment. I started I knew I could wait tables. I'd been working in food service forever. But working as a cocktail waitress was probably not the best place for an active alcoholic and drug addict. But it was my people. Once again, I was surrounded with people who drank like I did, some who drugged like I did. It was stay up late at night. We worked till 2 or 3 in the morning. We're getting tons of cash handed to us in tips, and it's a lifestyle that really lends itself to being able to drink. And so I did, and that was my last year of drinking. I lived in an apartment by myself. I didn't really have any friends. I didn't know how to be a friend. I didn't know how to be friends with people who didn't drink and drug like I did, and I found that there were becoming fewer and fewer people who were doing what I was doing. I mean, I was almost 30, right? I mean, I wasn't in college anymore. It was like there weren't that many people who drank that much. And I didn't know how to be friends with women. That was really, really hard for me. I didn't know how to talk to them. I didn't know what to say. I felt like I had literally had nothing to offer the world. I really didn't. My world was really small. I was dating a guy, but that was about it. I didn't really have any friends. I lived really far from my family, so I wasn't spending that much time with them, and they didn't really know what was going on because I was too embarrassed and ashamed to tell them, and I don't think I really knew. I mean, my therapist kept saying that the root of most of my problems was my drinking, but I couldn't really hear that because I could not imagine my life without alcohol. I couldn't imagine continuing my life with it the way that I was going, and I couldn't imagine not having it in my life. I was really sick. I was down to about 117 pounds. People would comment on how thin I was, and I was sort of proud of it, but it was really just sick. I didn't look good. I didn't sleep very much. I was constantly anxious, stressed, fearful. I didn't know how to manage money. I was using all of my tips to buy booze and drugs, and then I was putting my living expenses on credit cards. So I was like constantly stressed about money. And after one particular 3-day, 2-night bender, I came home and I remember laying on the floor of my apartment in the bathroom because I'd been sick and looking up at the ceiling and saying, please help me. I don't want to live like this anymore. And again, I don't know who I was talking to. I just felt it so deeply that I just couldn't keep feeling the way I was feeling. I couldn't keep living this way. And there was about a 50-50 chance that I wasn't going to keep living this way. I was depressed. I would say I was suicidal. But there was like enough in me to know that I couldn't do that to my family, that I decided to get up off that floor and actually seek the help that my therapist kept suggesting that I get. She eventually revealed to me that she had been sober for 10 years, and she kept suggesting that I go to this 12-step program. And while I kept telling her no, I did keep the little booklets she kept handing me that showed me where all these little meetings were. So I grabbed one of those booklets, and a few days later, I went to one of those meetings. Now, the first meeting I ever went to, mind you, this was Florida. It was a room full of, literally, it was just a room full of old men. It was on a Saturday night, and I remember going there and thinking, this can't be my life. I'm 29 years old. How am I going to live my life in these, they don't have basements in Florida, but like in these rooms in churches with a bunch of like old men talking about drinking. I went, and then I promptly went to the bar and ordered a drink. But I thought, maybe there's something to this, because the way I'm living really isn't worth living. So I went back to another meeting a few days later, and there were women at this meeting. And I remember they saw me come around the corner, and before I could finish the sentence, "Is this where the meeting is?" I started to cry. And they put their arms around me, and they brought me into that room, and they handed me tissues, and they patted me on the knee, and they told me I would be okay. And I don't know why I believed them, but I did. And they said, "You should come back tomorrow." And I did. And then I kept coming back. And I heard people telling stories that sounded like mine. And I saw these like professional women, like women who were real estate agents and lawyers and teachers and therapists. And they were coming into these rooms and they were saying, "I'm an alcoholic." And I had never, ever seen women like that say that they were alcoholic. I didn't know that was a thing. I thought alcoholics were just those old guys under the bridges wearing trench coats, right? Like all I'd ever seen was in the movies and TV. And here were these like real professional women. And they were telling me their story, and they were telling me what it was like. And I was hearing my story and their story. And I realized that nothing was wrong with me. I thought I couldn't not drink because there was something wrong with me. But the reason I couldn't not drink is because I have a disease. I have a disease called alcoholism. Just like some people have a disease of diabetes, or some people have the disease of cancer. It's not something we are asking for. It's not a moral failing. It's not something we could have prevented. It's just something we're born with. And so when I started to realize that there was nothing wrong with me, I just had a disease that needed to be treated, then I started getting the treatment that I needed. And I started working with a sponsor, and I started doing the steps. And through the steps and through working with a sponsor, I started to connect with myself. I started to connect with other women. I remember asking my sponsor once, I'm like, "I don't know how to be friends with women. I haven't had a friendship in a long time. Can you show me how?" And so we would meet with other women at Starbucks before the meetings, and they would teach me like how to be a friend. And then it took me a few months before I really surrendered and stopped the drinking, stopped the drugs. And on April 4th, 2005, I got sober. Since then, in the last 16 years, I have continued my journey going through the steps. I have taken several women through the steps. While I am not as much of an active member of the 12-step community as I used to be, I carry the principles with me in all of my affairs. Doing the work of the 12 steps that was the catalyst for me doing the personal growth that I've been doing for the last 16 years. When you are tasked with doing a fearless and thorough moral inventory of yourself, you get to swallow a lot of big truths about who you are, but you also get to paint the picture of who you want to be. And I remember those early years, painting this picture of the woman that I wanted to be. I wanted to be someone who was helpful to others. I wanted to be someone who was living a spiritual life. I wanted to be someone who did yoga and meditated. I wanted to be someone who had a lot of friends. I wanted to be someone who was a member of her family. I wanted to be someone who was happy. I wanted to be someone who was good at managing her money. I wanted to be the woman that I actually am today. And it started with painting that vision for myself in those early years of sobriety. I could have never dreamed that my life would be this amazing. As much as I could have tried at that point, I could not have seen what life could have been like for me today. To be here with all of you in the Alignment Tribe, to have this amazing connection with the universe, source, God, that thing I kept talking to on the bathroom floor and in those moments of need is a spirit, it's an entity, it's a being that I'm closely connected to today, which is something I've wanted my entire life. I do yoga. I taught Pilates for many years. I meditate all the time. I get to be helpful to others. I get to use my story to help inspire others to live the life they want to live. So when I come to you in this group and I talk about making choices, and I say that you have the choice, you get to choose how you think, you get to choose how you feel, you get to choose the actions that you take. I know how hard it can be when you're first making those choices. I know how hard it can be to take that first step, to say, I need some mentorship, I need some coaching, I need some help. I know what that's like. And I know for many of you, it's nowhere near the depths that I was in when I first got sober. But sometimes life can feel really hard. We're not sure where to go, where to turn to. That's what this group is for. That's why I've created this community. Because I don't want you to ever feel like you're alone. I don't want you to ever feel like you don't know where to go. This is where you come to. This community is supportive. We care about you. The coaches in the Alignment Tribe want you to know that you can create a life that you love. You can create with your own thoughts, with your feelings, and with your actions, anything that you want. You can truly manifest the life that you want and being who you want to be. And so for me, my journey of sobriety continues. It is something that I am forever deeply grateful for. I consider myself one of, I don't know if it's luck, but one of the lucky ones. This disease is cunning, baffling, and powerful. It's a disease that tells you you don't have a disease. It's a disease wherein your solution becomes your problem, and so you have no more solutions. It is a disease, though, that can be treated. And there's several treatment options. 12-step programs are just one of the ways that people can treat this. Mindset work can help as well. Some people need medical intervention, therapy. There's so many different ways that you can get help if this is something you're struggling with. But I'm so grateful that this was part of my journey in my life. I don't know that I would have been able to embark on the deep spiritual and personal development journey that I've been able to had I not hit the depths that I hit laying on that bathroom floor. Thank you. Sometimes when we're in the struggle, when we're in the challenge, we don't always know why. Sometimes with hindsight, we can see. sometimes we can see that the things that we felt were our greatest challenges actually become our greatest strengths. And I'm so grateful for this journey. I'm grateful for all of you. Thank you for allowing me to share my story with you. Thank you for being a part of this Alignment Tribe. Thank you for sharing the Alignment Tribe with your family and friends, with the people in your life. We are so grateful that you are here. I love you too. And thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have a beautiful, wonderful, blessed, abundant day. And just know that I'm here for you. If you need anything, please feel free to shoot me a message. I'm here in all ways for you, and I love you. Thank you for allowing me to live in my true nature and purpose. And we will see you next week for Mindset Monday.